Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Matt Bernier, the DRFBets race of the day for Thursday, January the 3rd, race number 9 at Gulfstream Park. We're going a mile and a 16th. Nice optional claiming race for older horses. You can bet the race and the card with a new DRFBets account. Sign up easy at bets.drf.com, where you'll receive a 300% deposit match. Let's meet this field. I want to remind you that you can get free formulator pass performances for this race on the Race of the Day event page at drf.com. Download them, handicap along with us. Matt and I will take this field in post position order, beginning with the number 1, Third Day, who looked like he was going to be a very promising runner as a young horse for Todd Pletcher. Something went awry. He went to the sidelines for almost 2 years, Matt, and I guess you could argue he's just working his way back into shape. Maybe a little bit of a sleeper. I think he drifts off that 4-1.
I was going to say, the morning line seems a little bit unkind. I wouldn't touch him at that price. But if all of a sudden he floats up in that 6-8-1 range, I suppose he does become interesting. Goes out for Brian Lynch now. And you brought it up. Maybe this is just a situation where he's needed to shake the rust off a little bit. You'll note that they brought him back at 3/4 of a mile. Then they stretched him out to a 1-turn mile. Now we get to the 2-turn configuration. There is a part of me, and I think you always have to be a little bit wary. You know, is he still the same horse that it looked like he could eventually become? Because off of such a long layoff, boy, the figures haven't been great. He's in there with a puncher's chance, but at 4-1, I think he's too light.
Advantageous inside post position for his first race around 2 turns. Noteworthy, I think, that Arad Ortiz gets the mount for trainer Brian Lynch. I think he can tuck behind the pace in here. Pace likely to be made by the 2 Brasstown, one of 2 in here, trained by Jorge Navarro. Here's a formulator fact to consider for Navarro concerning Brasstown. Over the past 2 years, older dirt routers, last out winners, third off the layoff. He's 9 for 14. 14 on the board, $3.09 ROI. And Brasstown, listen, from a figure standpoint, whether it's time form US or buyer, you could make the argument he's the horse to beat. He might be the horse to catch as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, and that could be a bit of a potent combination there. And I just kind of look at it and say, you know, you can look at it a couple different ways and say, oh, well, maybe it's just Navarro down in South Florida. Well, 2 starts back, he did it at Parks. So I'm not concerned about that kind of situation. If for some reason you get some wet weather, that's not an issue either, because that run 2 starts back came over a sloppy sealed track. Really the key for me in this spot, the horse drawn just to his outside local hero. I understand maybe he's not necessarily as fast early on as the 2 horses, but if he applies enough pressure early on, perhaps that saps the energy out of Brasstown. And when the real running begins turning for home, I think he's going to be there, but does it take enough out of him where somebody else can come and run him down?
I think you make a very good point. As we throw up the Timeform US pace projector, you'll note that Timeform US does not have a red bar indicating a fast pace. They do have the 7, Mr. Attila, up close. I find that hard to believe that Navarro is going to press Navarro, but you're right about the 3 local hero. He seems like a kind of need-the-lead type with a little bit of back class. He can be forward. Shareholder value could be forward. You've got a stretch-out sprinter and Storm Runner. Maybe he'll be forward as well. I think the pace will be a little bit faster than usual. Getting back to Brasstown, though, his last 2 races, as you mentioned, very visually impressive. Last time out, I loved the way he was able to clear to the rail before they hit the backstretch, and then he came to hand real nicely for Nick Juarez. Wasn't a lot of running late, though. The runner-up, who looked beat about 5/16 out, he hung on for second.
I was going to say, and then he came back and they ran him on grass. So you do have to wonder a little bit overall about what he was facing in that spot, the N1X. Now we jump up to the N2X. And really, for me, again, it boils down to how much pressure does he take early on. If he's able to shake clear, he's very, very dangerous in here, even going against tougher company. If he takes a little bit of heat early on from the outside, I wonder if that really kind of starts to see the effects of that as they turn for home.
Let's talk a little bit about Local Hero, who was such a promising 3-year-old back in the day for Steve Asmussen, multiple graded stakes placed, actually 3rd in the Louisiana Derby, and he just really never put it all together. Last time out was his first start off a 2-month layoff. He didn't get to the lead, which is where he wants to be, I believe. He was hard-ridden in between horses, and he was no match for a runaway favored winner in Super Tapit. I think Local Hero is okay, but I just don't see him getting the lead from Brasstown, and I think that's what he needs at this point in his career.
Yeah, his best races are when he's out there on the front end. I will say, at least it gave me a little bit of confidence anyway, or it was nice to see that 4 starts back when he won his most recent run. He did actually sit off of a target, but having said that, that was an off-the-turf race, and I can't help but notice, you look at all these past, 6 races, they've all been trying to get him on grass, and I don't know if he's been an MTO in most of them or what the situation has been, but this is a horse that Look, I don't think he ever really panned out. Like you say, in Louisiana, there as a 3-year-old looked like he could end up being something. I just don't think he ever put it together.
Storm Runner won over this course in distance last year, then was rushed in both the Fountain of Youth and the Florida Derby. Just disastrous performances in both of those races. Long layoff, he came back, caught pattern recognition, who ended up being a really nice horse in his own right. And then he had another layoff, and he caught Copper Bullet and Wild Shot and a pretty salty non-winners of 2 other then. I guess you can make excuses in that he was overmatched in several of his races, and that this represents sort of a hidden class drop as he stretches out to a more appropriate distance. I still wonder how good he is, though.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it like this, but outside of that N1X race that he won last year, he hasn't fired faster than 71 in any one of his lifetime starts. That simply put's not fast enough. I do wonder if you get another poor performance this time around, I think you have to go back and try the turf situation, because that's initially what they started him on. And I think if he hadn't run as well as he did breaking his maiden and off the turf race, perhaps he'd still be on the grass.
Second choice on the morning line, the 5 Tis Mischief. Won't be surprised if he ends up the favorite. He's got a little bit of name recognition. He was a promising 2-year-old, graded stakes placed at 2. He came to Gulfstream last year with some Kentucky Derby aspirations. They were shot pretty quickly after being beaten double-digit lengths in both the Holy Bull and the Tampa Bay Derby. Looked like he came back to form a little bit in the Matt win, but unfortunately that race preceded a long layoff. Breeders' Cup weekend, he came back, a nice score at Churchill Downs, got a real good ride from Corey Lannery, who dropped down towards the rail where he likes to be, turning into the stretch. Give this horse some pace. He might be the best closer in the race.
Yeah, I agree with that. I guess the tough thing for me, I've never been a huge fan of this horse, and I understand he did. You're right. He came back and he won that race most recently. That N1X was an 83 buyer. The field he beat is just kind of a mixed bag. You know, the runner-up came back and earned a 76, and he was only a neck behind Tis Mischief. Third-place finisher, only a 72. I know you had a next-out winner in there with a 78, but there's just a part of me that does wonder, look, if he's going to be the favorite, he's just the kind of horse that I don't have a heck of a lot of interest in at a short price. If you told me he'd be in that 5-6 to 1 range, I'd be a little bit more intrigued. But at a short number, I don't think he has any real edge.
Always have to worry about Todd Pletcher. Historically, you even have to worry about him more at Gulfstream Park. He sends out the 6 Biblical, making his second start off of a very long layoff. If you simply want to draw a line through his most recent race and say, maybe Todd ran a short horse, that's okay. This is a really well-bred son of Tappan who's lightly raced and might still have a forward move left in him, and he's going to be a good price. 10 to 1 in the morning line. I think we'll get a little less than that, but still playable.
I was going to say, I could see 7 to 1, 6, 7 to 1, somewhere in that range. To be frank, I haven't seen anything throughout his career that I've loved. But like you say, considering the pedigree, considering what they paid for him and the connections, you have to respect a horse like this. I wanted to see a little bit more in that return effort. I understand it was a 1-turn mile, and he probably wants it. To me, he's just a grinder. He's a stayer. He's never looked like any sort of brilliant horse. To me, this is probably what he wants. And even having said that, I don't know that I love his chances.
The other Navarro is Mr. Attila, who I thought ran quite well against graded stakes class Breaking Lucky. Went in for the 62.5 last time out. He had a really disastrous start. He hopped badly at the break, was sort of hustled into the race down towards the inside, and when the jock pushed the button on Breaking Lucky, Mr. Attila just couldn't keep with him. He ended up finishing second best. It was a good performance for Navarro, who does well second off the layoff, but that race has not come back strong, and I have some concerns about the distance.
100%. That was really where I've landed with this horse. You take a look, most of his races have been 1 turn, and I think that's for a reason. You look at that run at Penn National over the summer. That's the one that kind of sticks out to me, saying, you know what, you can be forwardly placed, but again, when the real running begins in these 2-turn races rounding the far turn, is it going to come up a little bit too much for you, and you're going to be a little bit too tired? To me, this could be a nice instance where if he comes and he's forward and perhaps he gets a little bit tired at the end, maybe he's a turn back special coming up forward somewhere down the line.
Let's take a look at our top picks for Thursday's race of the day, because you're going to the outside with the 8. Shareholder Value, who on Breeders' Cup Friday at Churchill Downs won the duel and lost the war in a pretty good optional claiming race, and I think he's better around 2 turns.
I was going to say, I think going 2 turns, getting back out to that's going to be beneficial. You know, most recent run, 2 starts back at 2 turns at Keeneland. He was a winner that day. I think the blinker's going on, and I understand Eddie Keneally's only had him for 1 start, but the blinkers went on 2 starts back. And to me, that kind of sharpened this horse up a little bit. He was always a horse that was close, and he just maybe hasn't lived quite up to expectations. He was another one that for a little while was down in Louisiana on the Triple Crown Trail. I think he's a talented enough horse. There's a couple things, though, that concern me. From a speed figure standpoint, he's not an incredibly fast horse. I think he's going to need some of these other horses to run maybe subpar efforts, particularly Brasstown, if he takes a little bit too much heat early on. more importantly, that outside draw is going to be a little bit difficult. I think Jose Ortiz is going to need to work something out. I'm hopeful he gets up there and can kind of take up that 3-wide stalking trip. Let those other 2 horses, the 2 and the 3, go. I agree with you about the pace projector. I think the 7 is going to be farther back. If shareholder value takes up that position, I have to be honest, I just take my chances, especially at the 6-1 morning line.
And he's coming out of a pretty live race where, again, I thought he had sort of a stressful trip, pressing a long shot, taking over, and then getting run down. That runner-up came back to win with a 91 Beyer speed figure and has won 3 out of his last 4 for Dallas Stewart. Brasstown, to me, the running style, reminiscent of a horse in New York, Mr. Buff, who's gotten good lately, just goes to the front and kind of grinds you into the ground. The key to this race is, does he get a lot of pressure from local heroes setting it up for stalkers like Shareholder Value, closers like Tiz Mischief? I'm going 2, 5, 8, and 3. Give me numbers.
I'm going 8, 5, 3, and 2.
Fun race, the DRFBets race of the day for Thursday. Bet it with a new DRFBets account and 300% deposit match that goes along with it. Easy sign up at bets.drf.com. Approximate post time for race Manini at Gulfstream on Thursday, 4:37 Eastern. Best of luck.